angle.
Testing. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's give it a clap. Oh, man, dude. I wish we could have that fan going.
You want it on?
No,
I know there's noise.
Yeah, that's gonna screw.
Destroy the noise.
Yeah, but I'm a super full-size dude right now.
I could crack a window. They catch some of that South Carolina rain in the background.
Are you serious? Let's do that.
That's ambience, dude.
That's awesome.
And I ain't worried about the sun cooking us alive. I'm a big believer in vampire suit. If you actually look over there on the top of that little dresser.
Yeah.
I went on Christmas Day to see the new Nosferatu movie.
Yeah.
Because I'm a movie cinephile.
Right.
This is my collector's popcorn tin.
Really?
Shape. You count Orlock off it.
That is awesome. I'm gonna send you some reels about that movie.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. It's just they make fun of the very end of it.
I'm sure. Which part of it?
You know that part.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Oh man.
I don't blame the guy.
Yeah.
He's misunderstood.
Dude, so I've been wanting to sit down with you since I seen these two dudes talking.
So like 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Or COVID particularly.
Yeah, right around that time. And man, I don't know. It's been a wild journey for me. I went up to New York, and like I said, I started out up there with an amazing amount of anxiety. Right, I went to New York. I didn't know anybody. I mean, I knew my wife's family a little bit, but it was an extreme amount of anxiety. Like,
plus culture shock.
yeah, really crazy culture shock. But the thing about it is I learned, and that's why I started a podcast, really, is I learned that there's a lot of similarities, with the people up there. And with that anxiety, I just worked hard. I was like, I'm just going to work hard and
funnel this into something.
Yeah, funnel it into something. And it became the Carolina Chuck thing.
Right.
So that happened. Let me explain how that happened. The owner of the dealership up there is Charlie Caprera. And they said, we're going to call you something different. How about Chaz?
You got that button up. Sure, you got the hair for a Chaz,
I was
man.
like, I don't feel like a Chaz.
Yeah.
They said, how about Chuck? I was like, a lot of people have called me Chuck. Let's roll with Chuck. Then I had a customer. He texted me, hey, Carolina Chuck, can you get something out of his old truck or something? I said, man, I like that. And they were like, hey, we're cutting radio commercials, and you get a whole 1 minute segment.
Top dog law.
Yeah. So I was like, hey guys, it's Charlie Winburn, whatever, blah blah blah. I didn't know what I was doing.
Up there, they probably like, who is this?
Yeah.
Ingrate.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, once I latched on the Carolina Chuck thing, I was like, hey, it's Carolina Chuck. And then boom, it just kind of took off.
Became its own thing.
Yeah, I was able to write it and stuff, and led into a podcast. I know I do a lot of hays and ums and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Not a public speaker, but I did pretty good.
It's
awesome.
It's really enjoyable. You're talking about a couple of things that really resonate. You mentioned the two dudes talking. Mm-hmm. It was COVID, and I had been a mechanic at the time. Mm-hmm. After the military, I just went back to what I knew. Had some issues with the leadership at Amazon and their safety standards. That's that. And that went out in a way that gave me the resources to finally make a change. I'd also just had a neck surgery and was working in a facility with 37 miles of overhead conveyor. Oh. So like that was out, and I was like, all right, man, I need to really, if I am ever going to get a chance to reinvent myself, this is it. Mm-hmm. I have these resources. The world is shut down because of COVID. What do I want to do?
Right.
Storytelling and connecting with people is tremendous. And that anxiety and that culture shock, when you went up there, that was one of my favorite aspects of the military. We had dudes from not only different states, but different countries, all kind of different religions and backgrounds. And I was kind of like a collector of all of that. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as that opportunity presented itself, I had a very good friend, Will. You know him. Mm-hmm. He had already been in the film industry working with, doing very similar things for larger companies for a long time. We're like, let's see if it works.
Yeah.
And then it became its own thing. And that changed the next 5 years of my life. So
it was incredible. And honestly, it was like, wow, there's two guys I know and they're putting together something that's pretty cool. It was really cool.
We put in hours and hours and hours, and I had never ever done that before.
Yeah.
But it changed my life. That's why we're here right now.
Yeah.
And it was so silly, for me at that time. My first 2 years out of the service were easily my worst. That transition out of that life, trying to reintegrate into a place that I did not belong in anymore. I latched on very heavily to the things that gave me my comfort blanket.
Right.
And that was movies and entertainment. So it was the perfect setting for that. We were just comfy talking about how much I hate Ferris Bueller. I could talk about that for a minute. So I hate that we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah. It is kind of a bummer, honestly. Yeah. Now that I got back, it kind of truthfully inspired me to do podcasts. Really, I was like,
appreciate
wow,
that.
Those guys are doing
if these two assholes can do it,
well, no, that's not what I thought. I was like, these guys are way beyond my level.
What is our maturity rating, by the way? PG 13.
It was. I would say right. Here. Oh, here, whatever, dude.
Oh yeah, good deal.
No. We're
those two dumbasses. We're good.
Right. Yeah. No, we can do whatever. I'm not on TV anymore.
Yeah. Right.
But here, I wanted to start right here, dude. My first memory of hanging out with you, you had this really cool, really awesome. It was a Honda Civic.
Oh man, the white egg.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And I was like, wow. And I thought you and your brother were like the coolest dudes. I was like, they are awesome, and they also are so nice to everybody. I was like, these guys are going to do something awesome. And that's kind of what I wanted to hear. What happened to you guys after high school? What happened to you?
Whew.
And how did you end up in the military? Because that is not what I thought you were going to do.
Yeah. I was actually this came up the other day, our senior superlatives. I was nominated most likely to be disliked by the local police department. And they're probably not wrong about that.
Right.
We'll come back to that because that's probably a reality.
We're going to get into that. Sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned me and my brother. I am an identical twin, which in and of itself, it's a very unique upbringing.
Yeah.
One reason you mentioned we're so nice to everybody. I can't say that this is the same for every identical twin, obviously, on the planet Earth. But I grew up in a shared existence with another person. My identity was not my own. I had to share a cell phone. I had to share that car. We had to share friend groups. We had to share clothes. Any extracurricular activities, we had to share those because of timing, scheduling, because we also had a farm that we were both full-time employees or AKA born into indentured servants.
Right.
So
interesting. That's interesting.
Having so consciously and subconsciously always thinking of a second person that I'm associated with, it just it really fed into an awareness of others. I'd like to say that on that point with the twin thing, I'm a big Mike Flanagan dude. I don't know if you're familiar. He directed The Fall of the House of Usher, Midnight Mass.
I see Midnight Mass. I started the House of Usher thing, but
The Haunting of Hill House is one of my favorites of his.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a whole episode called "It's a Twin Thing."
Yeah.
And it's very accurate. There is a connection there, but I do think that transcended as we grew older and apart into our relationships with others. I find it very easy to connect with a person, and within within 5 minutes I can find out I can figure out a lot about a person just by observing.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people, maybe a little later on the uptick with it.
Yeah.
But so we were twins. And even now, people still refer to me as us or y'all.
Yeah.
So like even
I just did that.
that's what I'm saying. We're almost 40 years old,
Right.
And our in-person interaction has been limited, almost non-existent. For the past decade. This is a treat seeing you.
Right.
Me and you.
Yeah.
But that's still the association.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny seeing that actually happen
Yeah.
right here for
it
everybody.
was weird. I mean,
But for me, it's nothing. We're so similar that both of our ex-wives have gotten us mixed up at one point or another. It was its own thing. So high school, we were both very big socialites. After school is a shorter story. The military that's a 5-day story. But we'll do the skinny version of the meantime.
yeah.
So graduated high school, went to York Tech, 2 degrees in the industrial field. I worked on dams for Duke Energy for about 4.5 years until joining the military. Loved that job, man. I was always on the river. It was dirty, hard work.
Wow.
Grimy every day, but it was fun. It was therapeutic. I grew up on the farm fixing machines, and this was just a shoe-in job. Loved that, but in 2010, sorry, I space out. You'll think I'm looking at you, camera, and I won't be looking at you. I'll be spacing out. You're so small, I barely see you, like Wally on a stick,
Little
man.
Wally over
Yeah. It was a very easy job, and those were great years. Those are fundamental learning years, I think, for everybody. I had a couple relationships. I had a great job, learned a lot about, the rules and responsibilities. Then I got that itch, and I was like, this could be it. I could be here for another 20 years. This is that good. I could be here for another 20 years. I could retire out of this, and that would work.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough.
Right.
It just wasn't enough. I felt that call for adventure. We're going to backtrack
Okay.
15 years right now.
Right.
So freshman year, it was my father's birthday. It was a Sunday night, and they aired the first episode of Band of Brothers aired. That's a HBO show on for Steven Spielberg produced, Tom Hanks directed, about our country's involvement in World War II, specifically the creation of the 1st Paratrooper Regiment. They did this to get further inland, off the coast. And it was a totally unheard of thing at the time. And this first episode, right? The first episode comes out, and it was mainly focused on their basic training. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, these guys are just getting dehumanized and tortured and disappointed. But I get that. I feel that real hard. I think I could do something like that. And I was like 14 or 15 at the time.
Right.
And, every episode started out with the original servicemen, like the old dudes, talking about their time. And these guys quickly became my heroes. But after that first episode, 2 days later, 9/11 happens. Boom. So September 9th, 2001 was the first episode. I had just been exposed to this ravenous desire.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, our country and the world is basically at war for the first time in our lifetime. So, over the course of those next few weeks, I latched onto that story just harder and harder every episode as I'm seeing the fallout from this and, how it affected us all. I was becoming, growing into my feelings of, national pride as a young person. And, it was a really kind of just cosmic moment. Fast forward back 15 years. I've been working on dams for, about four years or so. And I got really drunk on my birthday one night. And that next day, I was like, dang, dude. If I'm going to do this, I better hurry up. And I literally, because I was feeling just getting those years on me. And so I literally drove that morning to the recruiter's office, signed up, went to basic at Fort Benning. We can dive into any questions you have about the stuff we can dive in. Went to basic, Fort Benning, Georgia, the home of the infantry. It's the only infantry basic training cycle, or base. And then ended up getting stationed at Fort Campbell. When I found out I was going there, I was very excited because that's where the Band of Brothers was from.
So you didn't have any control?
No, none at all.
Oh, wow.
None at all. So I had guys that I had been seeing for the past 4 months going to Italy, Hawaii, New York, Colorado, everywhere. And me and myself and 8 other guys went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And there was a kid, he was a child. I was 24 when I went to basic. My best and first service friend, longest one, he was 17 at the time, had a waiver from his parents, so he would have been 18, a legal soldier by the time we graduated basic, so he was allowed to do it. So he and I ended up going to the 2506, which is, Easy Company 2506. And about 4 months later, I got picked to be the line mortarman for Easy Company. Wow. So about an 8-month time period from including basic training, when I called my dad that day, it was one of the coolest moments of my life. I was like, Dad, you're not going to believe it. I'm going to chill with them boys for a couple of years,
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
All right. So anywhere during basic training when it got really tough, how was your mindset? Well, you were still like, I'm doing this.
Yeah, man. It's a crazy place for crazy people. And at that time, I was fully for it, man. It was awful. It was the most fun thing I never want to do again. Like there were people jumping off of, obstacle course pieces to break their legs and go home. No. Like there were people that couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But, I was older. I had done my research. I knew roughly what to expect. And I knew that it was going to be worth it. And it totally was.
No doubt.
No questions. No, the day I left, I was like, adios, muchachos.
Yeah.
I'll catch y'all on the other side. No news is good news. Yeah. It was an awesome experience.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was just wondering.
So how I got there from high school, though, I have no idea, man. I was this light, carefree, goofy ass kid, and I still am very much to this day. But
because I remember when 9/11 happened. The next year, I did the 2 JROTCs in our school. I signed up, and I took those. And,
it was a very personal thing for all of us.
Everybody. Yeah.
My dad, though, he was in Vietnam, and he never shared any of that with my brother and I. And when he let us watch that show, it was like a TVMA at the time we were kids. And it was tremendous. It was just it latched on really hard. I'm glad it did. And I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat.
Wow. All right. So once you got to you said you were the mortar guy?
Yes. So also referred to as Chucks, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So tell me about that. What was that like? Firing freaking mortars.
So this was a little background on that. Something a lot of people don't know is how little control you have over your career, right? So I went to basic as what was called an 11 X-ray. That was needs of the Army infantryman. So we did our first however many weeks in processing, and then they took this bunch by alphabetical order and that bunch by alphabetical order. Y'all are going to be Bravos. Y'all are going to be Charlies. Bravos are the door kickers. Charlies are the mortars. We had no idea at the time, and we had already signed to go to whichever one they needed. So the duration of basic was the same for us, except for we had to stay an extra month or so to do additional mortar specific training. It was a blast. No, it was a great job within the service. I have no ears, and but it was wild. We by the time we left there, I mean, you could have four dudes driving a military vehicle, hop out, and from scratch have a four-piece mortar set up with a round down the chamber in as little as 11 seconds. That was our testing standard. So like it was a very quick reaction, and more of a defensive job. Set one up on a base or go out with the platoon, and we would try and get something before it got within range of the regular infantry. So I mean, it was its own job. I loved it. I personally loved it. It was everything about the Army. It doesn't matter what level of depth you're speaking about. It's crazy, man. I mean, it is a whole different world, and organized chaos. Hurry up and wait. Everything is backwards, and it doesn't quite make sense, including the jobs. But it works. It works.
Yeah, I mean, I got a dose of. I didn't make it to the military.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't make it. I wanted to go, and I got kind of. I think like that's why I'm curious. I feel like I would have been. I would have.
You would have been. You would have loved
I
it.
can't
Dude.
say that. Like I don't want to be like. I would have loved to do the basic training stuff because people are like, "Oh yeah, that stuff sucks."
It sucks,
but I love being coached. You know
Sure.
what I mean? I love being driven to do stuff. I've trained MMA and stuff, boxing.
Sure.
I mean, I know it's not the same, whatever, but I
it's a
love
similar
that part.
process.
I love being pushed to physically push, mentally push, and I like that.
Anything that challenges a person like that to go past, you get this wall. Everybody has walls. We all have walls and ceilings and such. But when you do anything that forces you to surpass that in order to just exist in this world, it really helps reshape how you look at other things. And that was a very quick principle we had to learn. But no, so I was stationed at Fort Campbell for 4 years and deployed with them in 2013 through 14.
Deployed.
Deployed.
Yeah. Where?
Oh, Afghanistan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't mine wasn't the craziest. We were.
It don't matter. It's deployed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's there, and there's so many things like that within the military. You have to do a 12-mile ruck march for any course, like air assault or airborne school. And if you don't pass 12 miles in 3 hours, sorry that you were the valedictorian of that class. You got to do it again. But if you pass it, everybody's like, what time did you get? I got it in less than 3 hours. It don't matter,
Dang.
It's like a deployment. It is a deployment. There are guys and girls that have had a lot harder of an experience in that. But yeah, there definitely its own stressors and benefits from just doing it. But highlight reel, literally day one with Easy Company was a game changer for my life. I went from being small town America to part of the most recognized and supported unit in current U.S. military history. So like the support that my 100 dudes and our one female, Jones, she was our supply chick, the support that we got was up here. But at the same time, along with that, our expectations were like way up there. So it was it was a very unique composition of us, in our situation. Always eyes, we had pizza sponsors, man. Like we had a pizza company that would come and take pictures of us eating their pizza for their free pizza like once every couple months because it was the Band of Brothers and we ate their pizza, but we ate that pizza. It was good, So it was this very strange thing.
Wait a minute. So
Yeah.
Afghan pizza?
This is in America. Yeah, this is in America, dude.
I was about to say, wait a minute.
I did have
That
pizza in
sounds kinda
Afghanistan.
wild.
They have great hot sauce, man.
Really?
You can believe that.
Okay.
Best meal I've ever had in my life was in Afghanistan, actually. You ever seen, of course you've seen it, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yes.
All right, so they had this big circular table. We were training the A&A how to use different weapon systems. And the last day of it, they brought us in for like this big like luncheon type thing with, so it's like the higher ups with them.
You ate a
and
monkey brain.
no,
Okay,
I didn't eat a monkey brain. So there was this big lazy Susan, this big circular lazy Susan. And, around it, there was just piles of the non-flatbread, the wild grown rice, the peppers, the fruits, the local, everything fresh. You've got beef or goat patties, kind of like hamburger and stuff on there. So you'd make this big, I'm going into it, dude, but this was so good. You take a big, like, flat naan bread, put the rice on, put a couple of, goat patties down, put the peppers and squeeze all the juices out into it. And then in the middle was this big basin, right? This big, it was about as wide as this checkered board piece is, this circular tub. And it was just red inside. And you would scoop, they had every piece except for the fur of a goat in that pot. And when I say that, I mean every piece of that goat. The eyeballs, hooves, like the tail and the butthole, everything was in this pot. Yeah. And to refuse them that would have been extremely insulting. It would have been an extreme insult. For some people, they consider it, I was like, I'm eating this. This is Indiana Jones Day. Yeah. So I'm just dabbing and slopping it on. I ended up getting E. coli. And
could you imagine having like some foreigners over here and we're feeding them buttholes?
And dude.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get pissed if you don't eat this. You know what I mean?
I can, honestly enough. I really can. Yes, I remember that day. So no, I ended up catching E. coli, and it was totally worth it because I'm never going back to eat it again, and it was the best thing I've ever had.
You just said it was the best meal that you caught E. coli from.
Yeah, nothing will ever touch it.
So how did? Oh man, that sounds like it sucks to have an E. coli over there.
It did because over there they're like, "That's all right, dude. Drink water and walk it off," and I'm like, okay.
Oh boy. Okay. That is no bueno.
But no, highlights of my military service time, and feel free to like dive in on any of these.
Yeah.
But I did, I had, after we had gotten back from the deployment, I was doing staff duty one night. So like basically watching the barracks. It's called CQ, Command of Quarters, watching the barracks, making sure anybody had any logistical needs that they had to contact. I go outside to have a cigarette, and I look up, and there's a dude up on the roof of the building beside us. I didn't think anything of it because we go up there drinking and tanning and stuff, and it wasn't that out of sorts. And I thought the guy was like fumbling around with his headphones, and because he had his like headphone cables. It didn't take long though to realize he was tying a rope out of his bootlaces, and he was about to try and hang himself.
Oh no, bro!
And which would have basically decapitated himself with those bootlaces. God. So yeah. I ended up spending 7 hours on the roof with that guy. I did get him down. It was a nightmarish experience, but I do think, like, in all honesty, I think that's the reason I was put into the service in the first place. A lot of other things that I experienced could have happened the way they did without my being there. Mm-hmm. But that one, that was for me. That's why I was there. The worst part of it was calling his mom, at the start of it when I had no idea how this was going to go. And I could not let him speak to her because he might have said a goodbye and jumped off the roof. But the best part was getting to call her back, and let her know.
Did you kind of training with that, or you just
no,
winged it?
No, dude. My buddies were in the building that I was in at the time when I left and saw this guy across the way yelling "no balls" at this dude. And I was the same level of professionally qualified as they were,
right?
But he, I let him smoke himself out of cigarettes, and then I got up there with him. I just listened and listened and listened, and he smoked all my cigarettes, and I made a private go get me more cigarettes because this was the time that we needed cigarettes. Yeah. And eventually he gave us the contact information for his leadership, and it was wild, dude. fire trucks, ambulances, like the whole damn family was out that night. And so this is a 24-hour shift, right? This CQ that all this happened in. My leadership never even knew it happened. I get to work in the morning, and my first sergeant and commander, they're like, "Morning, guys," and I'm like, "Whew,
Yeah.
what'd you guys think about last night's report?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What am I talking about?" I'm like, I'm just wired, you know. And I was like, there was a suicide jumper on the building across from us, and I got him down after 7 hours. And they're like, "Oh, well, why don't you take the day off today?" And I'm like, I already got the day off because it was after you did a 24-hour shift on that, you got the next day off. So it was like,
whatever.
really, dude. But that again.
So you went on 2 deployments?
No, I went in one that started 2013 and carried over into 14.
Oh, okay.
That being said, I think the total amount of months I spent away from home and family in the States in that 4-year period was about a year and a half's worth. You're gone a lot. Obviously, you're gone a lot. A week long here, a month long there, 3 months there, 2 weeks here. You know, it's all the time. But again, it's one of those things that made me who I am today. Not only that, but it gave me the benefits that I have that have allowed me to build all of this and, you know, undertake some of the stuff that I have coming. So, I mean, there are so many reasons that it brought so much value to my life.
So how much longer after that deployment were you in the military? How long did you do altogether?
I went in August of 2011, September of 2011, and got out in January of 2016. So it was about right over 4.5 years. Not including basic, a little over 4 at Fort Campbell. And it was awesome to leave.
It was awesome to leave.
As much as I love it, like that's
what made it? What was the decision to leave?
having my daughter. Easy. Her first year, she turned a year old the day after I got out. And that first year of her life, I was gone for over 6 months, and I was not on a deployment. And I did not want that for her. Mm-hmm. I'd already accomplished something I didn't even anticipate in becoming a part of that family, the Band of Brothers. Mm-hmm. I'd already done that, so I'd finished my thing. Mm-hmm. And family and responsibility for me is just a huge priority. Yeah. Now she's almost 10, like literally 10 next week, and wow. And she's killer. Had I not been there, she might be some piece of crap child. I don't know. I don't know. So I didn't want that to happen.
No, I get it. I mean, so you came out and you were right at 30?
Yeah.
Right about 30.
And a brand new baby back in the world again.
Wow. So what did you do directly after you got out?
Car sales, actually.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Oh, man. What were you selling?
Toyota, dude. I love people, love working with people. It's really easy for me to connect. I was like, I'd done real estate prior. I was like, this is just quicker. But I ended up, leaving that and kind of going back to what I had done before. The industrial work was just more stable and less time consuming for the time demands for my family. Especially with Layla being so small. I was like, these are the years that I can do this.
Yeah.
And that I need to do this. And then later, there's time for other things. Right. So, I got into the industrial field, stayed there until COVID. Podcast journey.
All right. So let's fast forward up until last night. Now, what was this meeting you had last night?
So this is something for the town of Clover. It's relatively new. they have a new veterans committee. Now, I just went and attended. There is a committee. I'm not a part of that.
Right.
But basically trying to engage our town more with the veteran community. A lot of the older generation, they're not as candid as I am about their time in the service. They got spit on when they came home. So they have a lot more hesitation in reaching out to the world around them. A lot of my generation likes to kill ourselves and drink ourselves to death and not take advantage of the VA benefits to find home stability and whatnot and mental health. So it has become more important to me to kind of try and bridge that gap between the civilian and veteran population. I think there's a lot we can learn from each other. So, last night's meeting was basically trying to establish something that could help facilitate those kind of interactions.
What is is it the
VFW?
VFW?
So
where's that at around here?
We don't have one.
Swear.
So
Crazy.
yeah. So and actually, so it's kind of an unfortunate event that led to this. A lot of towns don't have a veterans committee because a lot of towns don't have to. Clover made a mistake or two, but they're trying to fix that right now. Mm-hmm. I think they're doing that in the right place by engaging the town leadership and the veterans in the community to do so. So last year they had just they had hired a person over top of all the special events in town, events coordinator type thing, and somehow, literally, Veterans Day just got forgotten the entire day. It is what it is. That ain't for everybody, man. I'm not one of those thank me for my service. I love that time of my life, but I have a lot of very negative feelings about the military and the institution that it is, that it makes me irk a little bit when I hear that because people don't understand how negative of a thing the military can be.
Now that's got me a little bit intrigued because you were gung ho as heck a few minutes ago.
I love it. We'll come to it. There's
but I wanted to say that with my experience in the North Country
mm-hmm.
and not going into the military myself, but being so involved with that community.
Yes.
Right? Their families.
Now you were near
Fort Drum.
Fort Drum.
Yeah. So I sat down with soldiers a few times a week, try to sell.
You probably
cars.
sold more privates, expensive cars.
Listen. I am not that guy, right?
Guys up in New York, listen.
Yeah.
Call this one and find out who you need to buy a car from, so you don't waste all your sign-on bonus.
Right. I would tell those guys. I would sit them down because car sales for me is an opportunity to help people.
Sure.
I have to. I'm not that guy, right?
Sure.
I like making the money off of it, but to me,
you can do that in a way that benefits people.
You can do that in a way that helps people. I mean, I've made more money off of some of the best, putting people in their dream cars right where they want to be.
Sure.
Payment wise and everything.
Right.
It's a nice job, but it's an opportunity to really help people.
Sure.
And this ain't all about me. This is about
no.
But when young soldiers would come in, I'm like, dude, you don't need a freaking truck right now. Get you at least you.
You mean I don't need a brand new Raptor?
Yeah. I'm like, you got this money, put down a little bit of it, lease a Civic, establish an auto loan. You got to think steps ahead, right?
Sure.
I'm like, dude,
I'm glad there's people like you out there. I mean, for real.
If you go through my Facebook page, Carolina Chuck, look at all the pictures of people in uniforms in Hondas. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
They didn't come in there for that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I mean, and there's a lot of guys, and even the dealership I worked for, they were really good about taking. It's not as crazy as it seems.
Sure.
But yeah, I was making sure we were helping those guys because they sit down and talk to you about stuff, and then I don't. I've probably told this story several times, but I met these people there from the South. They came up there trying to sell him this truck. They're going back and forth. I can't figure out what he wants. He's on a nice truck, then he's on a cheap truck. And I'm like, some people want to be sold, and I could tell this guy.
Sure.
He wasn't a young military guy. You know what I mean? I mean, he's my age, but he'd been in for about 17 years, something like that. But ended up, like, I was like, these guys are kind of cool. You know what I mean? I invited them to my birthday party.
We're pretty.
Right?
We have a crazy vibe, man. We really do.
So we were hanging out, and I eventually sold him a truck. And I'd come over to his house. And we started hanging out every once in a while, you know. And he was like, I'm not getting deployed or anything. You know, they just got in the North Country.
Sure.
And then he's getting deployed.
2 weeks later, he's
going to Syria, right?
They'll do that.
And it was, and you know, this guy. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but to me, it was my chance to help, right?
Sure. It's
crazy sounding, but he had a couple beers, whatever. He's like, man, he's got 2 little girls.
Yeah.
And he's got a wife who's in the North Country for the first time. You're going to experience the winter alone. And he said, hey, will you get your wife to hang out with my wife? And I was like, America, dude, let's go. Yeah, I got you.
He's actually very fortunate that he had somebody on the outside to do that with, because anybody that is military that's watching this, it's so much better than her hanging out with another military spouse. Oh, my gosh, dude.
Yeah, I mean.
Ooh, and I'm not exaggerating.
Right. And that's, I was honored. It worked out for him, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we had her over for all the holidays. They became best friends.
Sure.
Matter of fact, she was in the military too, but I think she retired or something.
Is this guy still in?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What's his name? Or first name? Or last name? I know we go by last names.
Yeah, his name's Matt.
What's up, Matt?
Yeah.
Hope you're doing well, bud, up in New York City.
Yeah. We're not in the city.
Well, at Fort Drum, yeah.
Yeah.
Cold.
Well, he was awesome, man. We still text. Got into Frisbee golf.
I saw a couple.
Yeah. So he got me into this game called, what is it called? Can Jam.
I don't know Can Jam.
Cam Jam.
Cam Jam.
Can
Yes, Jam.
Can.
Like a crisp can of Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Look, so I came over to his house. I was like, I got the cornhole boards. Let's do this. He's like, my other buddy brought over Can Jam.
Okay.
What is this? I was like, there's no way there's a game better than cornhole.
Did you see Rock Hill on the Super Bowl commercial with cornhole?
I did.
By the way, that was awesome.
Right.
Shout out Rock Hill.
I know, God. That was awesome. So, dude, check this out. So it's a can. It's about this big around.
Okay.
It's off the table. It's about this high. It's a hole in the top. It's got a slit in the middle.
Okay.
About this thick, kind of across the middle. Your partner's like, I think it's supposed to be 50 feet, but we didn't play 50 feet, right? And then you got. You only get to smack it, you know what I mean? Like, you're going out here trying to flip it back that way. It's awesome. So, like, this is way better than cornhole. Then they introduced me to another Frisbee game.
Okay.
It was called Beersby.
Okay.
It's a spike in the ground, and then it has a bottle sitting on top. It comes with its own bottle
thing,
but it sits on top like this on a stake.
Okay.
And then you and your partner are on the same side at this time. Now you're throwing the Frisbee to try to hit the spike to knock the bottle off.
Okay.
And they have to catch the Frisbee and the bottle.
Okay.
Oh, wow. It is an incredible game. It's fun.
So
that led to, like, hey guys, I told him, I was like, there's a thing called disc golf too. So like, we became these Frisbee freaks. So in our group chat, it's called the Frisbee Foos right now.
Sure. No, we used to do stuff like that every now and then. Instead of some brutal PT in the morning, it's physical training.
Yeah.
We'd go off to a field, go do something of that nature. They let us do golf one day, but we all got trashed at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And They gave us a late call at the golf course because of the state we were in. They're like, don't come back until 12 o'clock, but this is never happening again.
Wow.
And we're like, Roger that.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to the point where, what is the bad things about the military?
So I will give a disclaimer on that. I fully support the military. I fully support people signing that oath. First off, I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that when you sign that oath, it's the same as law enforcement, and you are signing a binding agreement to protect the Constitution of the United States and the rights it contains for the citizens of this country. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know our rights. I didn't know anything about them outside of what basics I had seen from watching Cops as a kid.
Right.
And that being said, I support it. It's a very necessary thing, but it's done. It's an institution, man. Just like every other institution, there are flaws and failures and outright criminal acts and behaviors that are promoted. When I left the service, I was very bitter towards it for years. I'll get into that experience or those experiences. But after having separated from the service and those experiences, the necessity for what we did is still so relevant today. Without the military, we would be speaking some other language because we would have been invaded at some point during the past, and there's no getting around that. That comes with a lot of, baggage. Big problem in the military that if someone is considering joining, that they're going to run into. I was 24. I had 2 college degrees. I had real world experience. I had a very devoted to this institution mentality. When I left the service after, I think about 4 years in, so three and a half at Fort Campbell, my last rough year, the guy that was head of our mortar section he had a GED. I'm not knocking people that don't have the education, but he took very direct hostile actions towards me to prevent a person getting promoted that had that education so he wouldn't lose his job. Therefore, I got shit on real hard near the end of my career so that he could maintain his. The fact that a guy or a person with literally zero life, work, or education experience can be in charge of you regardless of your situation and the career progression of your next however many years, that should be addressed. There should be a lot heavier vetting process in what a leader is in the military, because a lot of people are getting the progressions are being gate-kept very heavily. There is a lot of general baggage. 76.5% divorce rate of the infantry. That's a big number, dude.
That's a big number.
22 vets killing themselves a day. Those are big numbers, dude, for such a small demographic of people. So, there are emotional tolls that just pile up over these years, and very often you get bitter. When we were deployed, probably the most prime example of this, I'm not going to use names, but our battalion commander at the time, we had several interpreters. Interpreters were great. Loved the interpreters, man. We had Ricky Bobby.
The real Ricky Bobby?
This guy was way realer than the other one, man. We had Ricky Bobby. We had Jackson, Tequila, Icy. And then we had Asif. Asif was the guy only one of all of them that had kept his given name. And the reason they do that is just like a handle, an American nickname that they take. Asif and Ricky Bobby, we were shutting down FOB Salerno. It had been purchased by the ANA. and we were clearing out all the materials and stuff before we handed it over to make sure that the minimal amount of stuff was left, because we knew the Taliban was going to come within a year and take it. So we wanted to make sure that the smallest amount of stuff was left behind for them to use as weapons against us. I mean, everything.
How are you getting rid of that?
Gut blowing some stuff up, stripping every building. We literally stripped every building on that base of electrical wiring over the course of 2 weeks. And it was 700 dudes and chicks just running around, ripping everything off of every wall. During that time, Ricky, Bobby, and Asif were, translating for a lot of the contractors that were on base with us. And they had both asked our platoon sergeant and platoon PL, our enlisted and officer leaders, if they could each take a microwave and a mini fridge back to their families. That was immediately were given the permission to do that. We got back to our AO, area of operation, our tents and offices and all that. And our battalion commander, we found out, had fired both of them for theft. Now, 30 of us, roughly, went to bat for both of these guys. And, they didn't steal this. We saw them get the permission for this. The officer and enlisted sergeant that had given them permission said, we gave them the permission to do this. This guy was a dick. And when I say that, he was a bad human being. He wanted to look good and make an example out of someone else, so it didn't matter. And because to him, they were foreigners. They were Afghans. He didn't care. He was there for, USA. My sergeant, and 2 others had to escort these guys off base for the last time. Ricky Bobby, he didn't care. He probably sold all of our secrets to the bad dudes within 5 minutes and is fine to this day. We found out.
Did he get his microwave or what?
They took the microwaves, but Asif, we found, was kidnapped, tortured, dismembered, and killed. That night before he left, he grabbed my rifle barrel and put it against his chest and said, I want you to do this, because if you do this, my family can bury me whole. I obviously couldn't do that, and I didn't, and I wouldn't do that, but that's exactly what happened to him. And that's because one person made a selfish decision in that military. So it's not the military. Sometimes it's the people in the military. It has its corruptions like every other institution, right? And that has haunted me for years. It's not like a secret. I've spoken with others about it, and but it's a problem. That's the thing. Like, should I have whooped that little tiny dude's ass and taken a demotion and possibly jail time for that? Because if I had, would this guy still be here? It took me a long time to, I think, place appropriate responsibility where it lied. And that's not with the Army itself. It's with the dude. There's a name that is responsible for that man's death. And it took me a long time to let go of some of those bags. And, I haven't fully let them go, but they are a healthy portion of a much larger backpack of mental health and studies and healing since then. So like when I first got out, man, I hated the military because of what, I had some of the things that I had seen, some of the things that had happened with myself. But again, the reason I support it so fully for others, let me rephrase that. I don't know of any other organization that when you get out of it, prior to retirement age, will pay your way to go to college. They'll pay that tuition. They'll pay it straight out the gate for you. In South Carolina, it's $107,000 to get a bachelor's degree for an in-state student if you sign up right now. $189,000 if that's out of state. That's a big number. The GI Bill will pay it up front. If you're a 100% rated disabled veteran and using the post 9/11 GI Bill, you can get $6,200 a month tax-free in your bank account to attend while your tuition has been paid. I know that every kid doesn't have the grades or the behaviors that will get them that scholarship. I know a lot of kids, when they get out of high school, they don't know what they're going to do with their lives, and that's fine. The military is a perfect place for people to find themselves, find things they didn't know were within themselves, and facilitate that journey for afterwards. And then hey, you're set up after that, man. Being a veteran is the best thing that you can be in this country. Being a service member, it has some real low points, but being a veteran, if you take advantage of the resources that are there for you, there's nothing else that can compare. So it can really, it's worth it to me.
So you said you went in at a little older,
Sure.
a little more mature, kind of knew what to expect. If you was to talk to an 18-year-old, what advice would you give them what kind of wisdom would you give them at that point if they were to prepare them for how you were kind of prepared and ready to go?
So it's funny. One of the things I'm actually working on in this studio is a series to provide answers to that exact statement. Or that question. What would I say to them? I have a series designed to basically coach people that don't know what the ins and outs of the service. Here's 2 minutes.
This is just a big commercial for that. By the way.
It is. You got, say, for example, you got 3 children, you don't know how you're going to pay for college. You should check out the channel that I will be linking to my friend here.
Yes.
And, basically there are some topics. Here's 2 minutes on what each branch is so you can figure out where you fall in. Mm-hmm. What are the top 3 jobs in each service branch that will set you up as a civilian after? 5 things you didn't know about the service before you need to before you sign that paper. But to give you that answer, I'd say the most important thing I can say to someone considering the service is really look inside at yourself and see if that's what you want to do. Because if you don't and you sign that paper, you'll be one of those dudes in basic training trying to jump off a wall, breaking your legs to go home. We had, a guy I signed up with and left from Rock Hill, South Carolina with. He did that exact thing, and when that didn't work, when they put him in cast and said, got about 2 weeks off, when that didn't work, he threatened suicide, and then immediately kept on that until he didn't finish the first 3 months of basic.
So, it comes across like you're not trying to sell people on going into the military.
No, it is a commitment.
You were really preparing them for the true commitment of it. Like, it's good.
It's a sacrifice.
If your mind is there.
It's for you.
Yeah.
But if you're not, it's a heavy weight. So, the one thing, first, consider very heavily what your motives are. What are your intentions for the service? And
what if I'm like, I just want to get college? Is this
if you just want to get college and you're that to that kid,
yeah.
I would say find a good home gym, exercise YouTube channel. Start doing them reps right now, because it's not like they're going to break you when they get there. Well, they will, regardless of what your shape is. But the better off you are before you leave, you're straight. So 1, get in shape. 2, learn the differences between a civilian and an active duty service member, because they are big. They're very, very big. Know what to expect. Keep your head up. It's going to be real shitty for the next 3 or 4 months, but then it's going to be slightly less poopy.
Yeah.
And then 4th, learn your rights. If you don't know what they are, if you sign the oath to protect the constitutional rights of this country and you don't know what they are, you're doing it blindly. You can still do that. I did it. But I regretted that. Mm-hmm. So really no study. There's so much content in the world that we live in. You can watch a series about what basic training is like in every service branch. You can find something like what I'm doing with other less handsome, less good voice people. You can find that out there. And so really just commit to yourself, not to the service. Commit to yourself, and if you're doing it just for college, my last secret tip: don't sign a contract longer than 3 years. You're straight, man.
Let me ask you this. This is one more. The last thing we're going to talk about in the military. Then we're going to move on.
Sure.
Is there anything that you could have done mentally or is there anything now that you've had time to reflect, anything you could have done different that would have reshaped the way that you came out with a little bit of negative on the military?
There's a million things I could have done.
I
And
mean,
that's, I
I'm
mean,
saying just, but go before you went in. Is there anything that you could have? I mean, I know that there were some circumstances you couldn't control. Is there any way you could have? What do you think you could have done to avoid those situations? Or
the only ones I feel like I could have avoided, I think I handled those very well. You know, there's existential stuff that you can't control what other people, you can't control other people. And I've learned that since then. I would say if I would have had more serenity going in, knowing what I can control and doing something about it, knowing what I couldn't and letting that dog sleep and, learning the difference between those two things. I don't think just within the military, but in life, period, it's critical to be able to do that. But that would have possibly made things a little bit easier because I put a lot of stress on my back that wasn't mine to bear, and it took years to let that stuff go. But again, it's something that it's one of the biggest parts of what made me into who I am today. So it's just that weight is all good. It's mixed in with the memories. Adam Driver, love Adam Driver, Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren.
He said this best when he said, the farther I get from the service, the more synonymous that word becomes with my friends and the camaraderie we shared. That's really at the end of it. Even in the best moments, in the worst moments, the people that I was there with, that's what I hold on to, more than anything else. And, now it's another story, what I mean? It's just another story.
That was awesome.
Appreciate it.
All right. So now you mentioned when I brought these Osmos cameras up, you said they'd be handy for
First Amendment auditing.
Now, what does that mean?
All right, so that's a two-part answer. It is a peaceful exercise of the First Amendment freedom of press. In the First Amendment, we have 5 elements: speech, press, religion, the right to peaceably assemble, and the right to redress your grievance against your government. I didn't know this, and it's not a big surprise because less than 7% of the United States knows all 5 elements of their First Amendment. That's crazy. How people do this peaceful exercise of that First Amendment right is in a public setting. A public is very specific. It's not like the public, big, wide open space parking lot at your dealership. Anything that is tax paid, if you can see it with your eyeballs, you can film it as well for your own records. Why is that important? A lot of people don't like being filmed in public. What it is important, where it's significant. Think of George Floyd, right? Doesn't matter whether this guy was murdered, killed in the line of duty, justly. Doesn't matter. Those details are important, but not to this conversation. One of the most important elements of that situation was that an underage person was legally protected to record what happened and disseminate it to the rest of the world because it happened from a public standpoint. That is pivotal or critical in that worst case scenario, the ability to record your government officials in the course of their duties. So First Amendment auditing is a social media movement that has exponentially grown over the past 10 years or so. A lot of people look at them as cop watchers or instigators or clickbaiters or whatnot, and there's some that do that. But yeah, they go around with cameras, cell phones, and they do just that. They record our public employees in the course of their duties as they are afforded to under the First Amendment freedom of press.
Wow. All right. How did you get into that?
Man, YouTube is a wild, wild place. I went down a rabbit hole, and I know I'd said earlier that I signed up to protect our rights, and I didn't know what they were. after I got out, that's something that kind of resonated with me, and I took issue with that. And then I started seeing people doing this in the earlier days of its movement. And initially, I was kind of upset about it. I was like, man, why are you going to be recording somebody in public? You're just trying to put their mail in a box, dude. Like, what's the point? And then I saw someone, a very personal situation, or one that I found very offensive, where an auditor, a person recording just from a public place, captured on film a mid-70s woman with dementia just being brutalized by a police officer. Had it not been for that freedom of press, that would have went under the rug. It would have been nothing to it. It would have been like all these cases that everybody talks about that get brushed under the rug that currently still do. It would have been another one of those. This is just a safeguard against that happening.
So you're saying that not the fact that somebody was filming it, it was the fact that they were able to release it to.
Yes, so that's what classifies it as press, right? Back in the day, people would ride with horses and they'd ring the bell. The British are coming, In later days, they wrote letters with the postmaster, and they sent those around. That was news. That was journalism. We live in the digital era, dude. You can put something on the internet and you can make it look one way and it can be false, but you can disseminate that to the public. But if you're also just observing something that happens and you put that back out there, that is, in essence, you, myself, every body cam on a cop, every Tesla that drives by you with all their cameras on the side of them, everything can be redistributed, and it's considered press, journalism. I mean, dang, Donald Trump just started asking for content creators to sit in these live streams in the press room at the White House. It's changing,
Right.
That's with a cell phone, a dude with a YouTube channel. Like, now granted, that's not going to be every single person in there. That'd be crazy. But, it used to be Fox News. It used to be this, but people don't trust that anymore.
Right.
And, I vibe with it. I like that civil disrespect. Like, I hate to say it. You know how many people were killed, or how many officers were killed last year in the line of duty that were not by a driving accident?
How many?
Less than 70 in the entire United States of America. Do you know how many people they killed last year? Not all of them, just the bad ones. Do you know how many people were killed?
You're saying
shot by a law enforcement to death?
How many bad people, or how many?
How many that were not
innocent?
Considered? Yeah, how many innocent people were considered?
No idea.
Over 1,200. Now, law enforcement's a very small percentage of our population.
Now, here's what I was going to ask you about this too, because you got the military thing.
Sure.
Do you? I don't want to be like judged for
Get
this or
in
anything,
there, dude.
but I feel like the military and police officers are two different things, and you've got a lot of military going into law enforcement, and that's trained killers, right? Like,
Do you know what the Third Amendment is?
I do not. Tell me.
No soldiers shall be quartered on my property or in our cities absent a time of war. Now, we just dropped all these anti-IED vehicles into some police officers' laps. They're all wearing SWAT stuff. They all look like dang soldiers. They use the military structure, sergeant, lieutenant. It is a very gray line. And unfortunately, I think I have a big problem. I have a big problem with that.
Yeah.
Because, we both signed those oaths to protect the rights of our citizens. You find me a police officer that can tell me the Bill of Rights, and I'll give you $100. We don't set them up for that. We send them to the academy for 2 months max in South Carolina. We don't teach them the rights that they're protecting. And they go around searching people's cars unlawfully. They go around fishing for problems. And, to a lot of our community, it feels like we went overseas and did our part to protect our rights of the citizens of this country. And now you're over here shitting on them. It's a really conflicted thing. Now, There are a lot of very, very good professional constitutional officers out there. They're not proactive, trying to look for things to cripple the people of their own communities. There's a need for, there's lawlessness, so there must be law enforcement. But I can't really put it on the officers, and I apologize if it has come off on like that. I can't put it off fully on them when we have failed to train them. We put more focus on tactical training than training on the rights of the citizens and how to do this properly. America's not been happy with law enforcement for decades, dude. It's just up until the internet, social media, you didn't hear about it because all the news sources were bought and paid for by.
Yeah. So what motivates an officer to do crooked things?
I think the same thing that would motivate me or you to do it, dude. Enough temptation or a desperate situation sometimes. There's perfect example, not corrupt at all, just piss poor performance. Dude, about a month ago, cop respond and nobody gets killed. It's great. It's a good story because nobody dies. Officers responded to, and I think this was in Florida, a domestic disturbance where there was a report of a man with a gun. They show up, dude has the gun. They put him in handcuffs, put him in the police car. Not too big of a problem. You live around here. Have you ever heard an acorn hit a car?
Oh, yeah. I heard that. Yeah. I saw that.
Acorn hits the top of this car. And for those of you that haven't seen this dude, this cop, falls to the ground saying he's been hit on his body cam, falls to the ground, says he's been hit, draws his gun, and mag dumps into the back of this police car where this guy's just sitting there minding his business. He didn't kill the guy, but he switched the mag out, or the clip out, and dumps that one in as well. That's a problem, right? That's an unfortunate situation. Now, when his partner goes and alters those events on the report to make it look like there was nothing wrong, now you got one dirty cop, and that's the one that didn't even do the shooting. It's very, very. So you got 10 cops in a room, and 9 of them are bad, and one of them doesn't report them. That means you got 10 bad cops. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that back the blue until it happens to you, dude. That thin blue line gang sign is one of the worst things for this country, and that's just my opinion, not everybody's. There's a very big gap between the people and the people that control the people.
Now, see, I've been raised by police officers, so I'm used to seeing the kind of stuff that they go through. I'm
very traumatic.
Here's
a question about that. Mm-hmm. When you are seeing as an officer, or you think back on family members, right? My mother worked with law enforcement for 18 years. When you consistently see the worst of humanity in a population that you're overcharge of, like cops don't go out and see the best situations every day. They don't see all this good stuff every day. They go out and they do see the worst of society every day. When you do that for long enough, it desensitizes you. You start thinking the same way about everybody as you do with these worst case scenarios that you've encountered. And again, we have failed law enforcement by not providing them any way to dissociate those feelings.
Because I remember my dad talking about this little girl got her head run over, and he's got to respond to that stuff. You know what I mean? Like
terror. There's a lot of traumatic stuff,
you know what I mean?
Well, especially for their generation, I do have hope for the future generations. They were taught to be silent and keep it in, and that's bad. That's bad, okay?
Yeah, okay.
It really, really is. It's terrible for the soul. It's terrible for your day-to-day. And, they're not in a position. This is the most criticized time in police history ever. And it won't change until there's some fundamental issues addressed.
Yeah.
Right here in York County, Trevor Mullinax. Do you know about Trevor Mullinax?
What about him?
Have you heard this name? Welfare check?
No. I don't know.
So 2017, when your tax dollars go up in York County, you can you can think of this story because
Yeah.
there's the lawsuit that's coming because of it. So this dude, he's a very, very kind fellow. I have briefly interacted with him, but he was in a very bad custody situation in June or July of 2017. He had just had a big argument with the mother of his child, threatened to take away, kind of thing. From my understanding, that's hearsay. What is important is the next day there was a welfare check because he had reported himself to be suicidal. York County Sheriff's deputies respond to the scene. 4 of them jump out of the vehicle where they found him sitting in his pickup truck. 4 of them jumped out of their vehicles with guns already drawn. This is for a suicidal person call.
Wait a minute.
You do know this.
I know exactly where you're going.
So within 11 seconds of getting out of the car, when they're supposed to respond to a suicidal person that they need to help, that they're being paid by that person to help, they shot 47 times into his pickup. Hit him 9 times, including the back of the head. He survived it and is currently suing our county.
Wow.
There are problems with training, and then there are other problems. And it's very hard to distinguish what those are, which is what started auditors. You got people out here filming you doing these things. You're going to do them more carefully, whether you like it or not, whether you
just like the bad guys. I mean,
dude.
You can't steal from Walmart or, you know what I mean?
Right,
You
dude.
know what I mean? Like,
And it's a safe.
not like I'm doing that. But, you know
right.
what I mean? Like
I might, but depends on the Walmart.
They're big enough, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Screw the man, dude. I will fully, if you're going to do it,
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing. And if you request body cam, you better come with a subpoena or you won't get it. But if you've got that video yourself, they can't prevent you from doing exactly what happened with the George Floyd situation, making everyone else aware of what's going on. Another example that, again, of why this is necessary. This is not every officer. This is not every police department. But those cameras filming these cops wouldn't exist if there weren't people in police departments like Gastonia Police Department, GPD. 2 years ago, they arrested homeless veteran Joshua Rohrer for being homeless, and they said he was panhandling. Now, panhandling is protected also under the First Amendment. It's been ruled in Supreme Court as a protected activity, asking for a charitable donation. I can ask you for $10. You don't have to give it to me. That's fine. Both of those things are fine, and that's okay. Now, this dude was doing that. Well, he wasn't even asking. He's been known in the Gastonia community for a long time. He and his dog Sunshine were very well known. Like, people would bring his dog, they would bring her food and water on hot days, and that was more that it was always so generously received. He was a very kind dude going through some stuff. I mean, again, 22 a day killing themselves. I'm glad he wasn't that bad off, right? He was going through some things, though. He's on his own. So the GPD pulls up, says, you're panhandling. Well, that's not a crime. This is his response. That's not a crime. Well, give me your ID. Well, I don't have to do that unless I've committed a crime, according to the Fourth Amendment. These rights are important. The son of the head of internal affairs of GPD, both of y'all corrupt, goes on to snatch this dude up, locks up Josh, or puts him in handcuffs, tases the service dog Sunshine that is from here to that door away, says, he bit me, and then tases the service dog. They take Josh to jail, and Sunshine got out of the custody she was in and got hit and killed in traffic while he was in jail for being a homeless veteran. Wow. that sits on some people a certain way, and it calls them to activism, which is the First Amendment community. They are the response to actions like that. And unfortunately, those are a 20-minute drive from each other, those two police departments, 30-minute drive. So, like,
Yeah.
it's out there.
Man.
So it causes people to want to do this. Now, I did dabble. My very first time doing this was in response to the Joshua Aurora incident, and you never guess what happened.
What happened?
They locked me out of the police department because they didn't want to answer to their awful behavior.
Wow.
And
where do I find this?
It's all on YouTube at I Solemnly Swear, which, there are a handful of things. I had a couple of great interactions. I had a very irritating situation with a York police officer, and when I got to their department, the responding lieutenant was one of the most respectful, professional, educated police officers I've interacted with to this day. And that whole video highlights how good some of them can be, the potential that is there, what a good officer is. But then, the very next video down is about a member of our community that was a former law enforcement officer that got fired from Clover because he's a piece of crap. And then wound up in Lancaster, and he ended up getting fired from Lancaster after he got caught calling women bitches and good girls in uniform and telling them to bring the thirst in thirst offs on Instagram while in uniform on your tax dollars. So, like, I happened to have an issue with that, So I literally went file complaints. For me, how I what my goal in it to do is I recorded my process of filing complaints and disseminated that back to the public, freedom of press, in a way that could show them how to do that themselves if they ever ran into it. It wasn't all about let's find this dirtbag kind of thing. Let me help arm the people in a way to take care of themselves, maybe a little bit better than they knew how to yesterday. I miss those days. Probably in a future point, I will be getting back to that. Yeah. But just with children and whatnot, having the feelings that I've already expressed right now makes you have a certain stigma in a community.
Right.
And I hate that because, in Clover, we have a really good police department. I know there's several veterans on our police department that I know some of the RSOs in our schools. And, Chief Grice has asked me anytime I want to come speak to some like new officers or whatnot at shift change to help them.
They're doing this thing.
Tell me this thing. But yeah, while you're looking that up, they're very engaged with their community, and that's how it should be elsewhere.
And I'm gonna tell you, I like the Clover Police Department. There's
same.
Charlie's a good friend of mine.
Yep. Charlie and I, he's been I see him quite often, and he's a very good one.
This is something you might want to look into right here. I didn't.
Oh yeah. I would love to do this just to see what they. I mean, that right there will tell you
good content for you. I would think
it would be a great way to see what they want our community to think. Yeah. I think an aware citizen attending something like that, I think that would be a really good way to gauge the true integrity of a police department. If you know certain things, and you really see what they're trying to perpetuate.
Yeah,
I think it's good to engage with the community, but I've kind of been,
I mean,
it's one of those things.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be a good opportunity for you to.
You might see me in there at one point or another. I mean, I do think. So the ultimate goal of auditing, and I think this is a very good point for this little ideal. The ultimate goal of auditing is not to get rid of cops. It's to have a better police force to better serve the community.
That's what I'm thinking. That right there would be. You've done this work, but that would be the bridge to put the work together.
I already have a Bridge the Gap program I've created for law enforcement to in our communities. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've shared this with, the sheriff and their attorney, talking about the case laws that we refer to and why they're important. Why, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but topics like why it's important for you to understand the rights you swore to uphold. Like, I'm not dogging on them because, again, I did the same thing. The difference between me and 90% of veterans and police officers is I corrected that, and I think it's a very necessary thing to do. But I'll say seeing them engaging the community is better than not, for sure. And again, with Clover, knowing those officers the way that I do on a personal level, we are very blessed because
Yeah.
everybody doesn't have it the way we do.
Right.
On both sides of us right now, they're
Now, I used to get in a lot of trouble in Clover.
most likely to be disliked by the local police department right here.
I have. I've had some experiences back in the day.
I traveled out of town for my trouble.
Yeah.
I did. It's a really engaging community. You can really tell though. I mean, you don't talk about exponential growth. If there wasn't something very valuable there, they wouldn't have jumped. Literally 13 years ago is the very first time I can recall right at the start of YouTube. The very first auditor. For the next like 4 or 5 years, there were only 7 or 8 people doing it on all of YouTube. And that's not like, oh, you can't find them all. Like, no, there were no people doing this because of how dangerous it was, how uneducated the citizenry was on case law and blah, 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 blah. Bro, now you can find.
It's a fad, really.
It is
not a fad, but
it is a
I see it a
movement
lot. Yeah,
that is
movement.
growing.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, it's kind of interesting. All these nice cameras and stuff. I'm after I do my Band of Brothers series, and it'll be a while because I have a lot of interviews to go through with that. But the next 2 groups that I'm diving into are the First Amendment auditing community. I have multiple channels that are big heads in that field that I've connected with, networked with, that, I'll be traveling to meet them all over the country, see those 2-3 hour interviews with them specifically about their motivation, their inspiration, what their end game is, how they do it, all of those topics. And after I finish with them is the online child predator catchers. I
don't even know how to bring this up. There is some. I'm not going to say any names.
Sure.
But since we're talking about that, there is someone that you and I know
that does this.
No.
Oh,
They have reached out to my daughter recently.
you want to put them on camera?
But I was thinking about setting that up somehow.
We'll communicate about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after. But
So that group, our justice system, and this is not on any law enforcement officer. This is not on any judge. This is all of it in a whole. Our justice system does not address that properly. And I think I'm not a big fan of social justice because very often it's a Karen that doesn't understand what they're talking about. However, in this situation, put them on blast, make them run and hide to another island somewhere. I'm going to pause this. These are some of my favorite things, man. Curry is our motto in the 2506.
what does that mean?
Curry stands alone but together. It is Native American. Translates roughly to stands alone but together.
You ready?
Yeah.
So you're big into movies,
Big
good
time.
cameras. I always thought in the back of my head, I wanted to write westerns. I wanted to write westerns, but I like horror too.
Sure.
I'm like, what have they not done? And you know what? What about those giants they have found out west? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
The
sure.
Indians.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Indians. Why? That could be a movie.
Do you see that guy right behind you on the wall?
Oh yeah.
That's my favorite dude.
Yeah.
So Stephen King is my favorite
Yeah.
author. Obviously, an iconic storyteller. In the midst of the series that you made me think of, it's called The Dark Tower, right? Are you familiar?
I've read The Gunslingers.
It's a killer series, dude.
it was really difficult read. You know
It
what
is.
I mean?
It's a very slow burn.
But
Now, we mentioned Mike Flanagan earlier, the Midnight Mass, all that.
Yep.
He has taken kind of the mantle of the Stephen King creator of our generation. He is currently working on Carrie remake, and afterwards for Amazon, he is making, I think it's 6 seasons and a 2-part movie, Dark Tower series.
I thought the movie kind of sucked.
The movie was all right, Idris. I'm sorry. You had a great episode on Hot Ones, and I know you already know in your heart you've done better, and I remember you for those better moments. I do, but that was really rough. That being said, the director, it was his first feature film.
Okay.
They took 7.5 books and tried to put them into an hour and 20-something minute movie. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know.
I was lost as all get out, and
It
I was like, I don't remember this.
it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But that dystopian horror western is my favorite series, favorite book series on the planet is The Dark Tower. Can't wait to see it come out. You may get some of that, which is very nice, man. That extra fresh stuff.
Yeah.
I love that fresh new take. One of the things that in the past couple of years that really captivated me was also based off of The Running Man and The Longest Walk by Stephen King, but Squid Games. Netflix's #1 performing show ever, probably will be for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Stranger Things is great. But
I
it was fresh.
Yeah.
Squid Games, like, it had me going, dude.
What else did I just watch? Like I on my journey, I fell out of love with movies. Right?
Sure. That's sad, man.
It is. And
They're so great.
They are. And the problem is I believe I started taking them way too literal and not enjoying the art of it. And that's why I've come back to movies.
I can feel that. I've had kind of a revitalization in mind. So I'm in about a year and a half into film school right now. And, you know, it's kind of like when I joined the military, every time I watch a military movie, I'm like, that's trash. That's not real. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
exactly.
You know, so I lost some of the story in that.
Right.
You know, I lost the ability to give grace. You know what I mean? But now, like I view everything in such a critical. I have to watch something twice. You know, one time I'll watch it and I'll get that out of the way, and then for some reason my mental block will let go and I'll be able to enjoy it, whether it's trash or masterpiece, Academy Award winner. After that first round, I'll give it its flowers per se.
Yeah.
But like The Joker, right, with Joaquin Phoenix, it's one of my favorite films that I've seen since leaving the service, at least. And I'm watching, I'm like, damn, look at that shot. Where he's like on the train riding into the city. I'm like, that looks so good.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually did like the second one.
I have not seen it. I'm going to though. I love Lady Gaga, man. That's my jam. And Todd Phillips, I know a lot of people really ripped on the new one. Having not seen it yet, I appreciate the last time I had seen Todd Phillips make a movie until the first Joker came out. I think it was Old School. You know, it was like one of those old comedies from like when we were much younger. So like seeing how I know what A Star Is Born, multiple awards, beautiful soundtrack, also Lady Gaga, great. You know, I love it when a director and an actor, actress, you know, entertainer find that camaraderie. I have expectations that I'll enjoy it. I love a good musical. I'll cry in something, man. Don't get me started on that. A lot of people didn't like it,
They're
but I'll give it
calling
a
it a
choice.
musical, and you haven't seen it, so it's gonna make it really hard to talk about. But I'm gonna fill you in on a guy
Give me the skin.
who's critical of movies
Sure.
like yourself. That was art.
Yeah.
That
Awesome.
was
That's compliment.
that was art. You got to you can't assume things going in. You can't be like, this is a Batman movie.
Sure.
You have to go into it and accept it as art, because the very end of the movie, you're gonna be like,
That's how it was with the first one. As long as they do that again, I'm straight. That joke at the end of the first one, what do you get when you mix a society or a mentally unstable individual with a society that doesn't give a shit?
yeah,
When he said exactly what you fucking deserve. Pardon my French, guys, but that's important.
yeah.
It was art in the highest form. So I'll watch it. I will check it out too.
There are people that wanted to kick off into action, but you understand mental illness.
Sure.
You're gonna understand the parts that we're singing was fantasy,
Sure.
or whatever. The part, you're gonna get it. I think you're gonna like it a lot.
I'm sure I'll love it, dude. Well, that brings a great question for me to put to you. Give me your top 3 movies. Doesn't matter if it's whether you think it's just such a success, such a big art form. What are your favorite safe place movies? Like, I love this. I don't care whoever likes it.
I think my number one movie, if I had to have a movie, it's going to be Old Brother Wartho.
Damn, we're in a tight spot.
Yeah, my hair.
Yeah, I'm a Dapper Dan, man.
I've watched my dad like that when I was a kid, and we watched it over and over, and it was based on the Odyssey. I mean,
Sure.
I think that's also it's an adventure, but it's it's funny. It's a feel good movie.
Sure.
It's got everything in it. It's
Life's up and downs, the general story. It's a good one, killer.
I have The Matrix comes to mind.
The first time I saw The Matrix in theaters was the first time I walked out and was like, could this be real?
Right.
It twisted me up.
I don't know. I watched it again. I'm like, this sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But I think that movie impacted me in a way.
Sure.
And then, and I'm just clicking off what comes on. We talked about it earlier. Talladega Nights.
If you're not first to last, dude.
I think, I don't know. Those are the first 3 that came to my mind.
For sure.
Yeah.
Good movies. Several of our schoolmates were actually like in the background of Talladega Nights.
Yeah, it's awesome. It was filmed all over the place.
Right.
All right, so now I got to know yours.
Lord of the Rings, dude. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite movie of all time.
I watched that movie you know how you used to go to hotels and you get to rent the pay-per-view movies? It was like a treat. I don't know if you experienced that, but
yeah.
Sometimes when we go on vacation, we got to experience that.
Sure.
Me and my brother, we sat there and watched The Fellowship of the Ring.
Was this your first time?
The first time.
First time. How old were you? Put me there. Where were you? How old were you?
However the hell old you were when it came out.
Right. So it just got to the rentals on pay-per-view. Okay. Yeah.
So however
question,
you're old.
Yeah.
And I watched that movie in absolute awe. Just like, wow. That's awesome.
This was a gift for my wife. It is the One Ring. It is.
Yeah.
It's special, dude.
Yeah.
It's that world building.
It wasn't the first. I mean, that's probably one of my favorites too. It's definitely one of my favorites. But I was just going off what came to my mind.
Sure, man.
Great movie. I watched. That is one movie that I'll remember where I was.
Right.
Sitting there watching it in complete awe, and at the end of it, I was like, I've got to have more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I was young. I hadn't read the books at the time.
No, I've never read
and
books.
I had read The Hobbit, and I mean it's very small compared to the others, which is crazy because they stretched that one into 3 movies. Anyways, it it changed things. You know, it changed things. Like Will Brooks, we talked about him. That was the reason he got into film in the first place. Like when that came out and all the extra features, you know, he learned about all the techniques and
Star
such.
Wars is my favorite movie, probably.
That's another great series. I mean, it's an easy watch. It's a fun watch.
Yeah.
But no, I'm a big fan in general of like the world building. Like as far as books go, you know, C.S. Lewis, Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. I've never seen a world painted so well in a book. Not the biggest fan of the movies, but Lord of the Rings, man, it took me to that place. It made it feel so real, and it was just such a good depiction of that struggle we all have with ourselves to do the right thing, and like how heavy that can be, and it was fun to watch that, and and in the middle of it you've got so justice, like it was just killer.
The funniest thing that I'm going to say is I literally read the whole Harry Potter series.
Sure.
I read those books. Come on. That's awesome.
I love books, dude. Books are a uniquely portable magic. You know, Stephen King, he changed my life on books. Harry Potters are great. What do you think about the new HBO stuff? What are your...
On the Harry Potter stuff?
Uh-huh.
I never followed through with the movies. Like I watched the couple when it came out when we were younger.
Sure.
But when it got towards the end of the books, I was out.
So basically they're doing like 1 season per book. Totally renew. Starts
Really? I didn't know that.
Starts either... They're looking at late 2026, early 2027. I'm excited about it. You know, there's multiple Knights of the British Royal Order in those films. Alan Rickman, both Dumbledores. You know, Michael Gambon, the newer Dumbledore. Same with Lord of the Rings, man. Bilbo, Gandalf. These are like slayers in the acting community. You know, so I'm excited to see what they do. I know HBO has had a very successful run, you know, as far as TV shows go, and that's just it's been Harry Potter's been a social media icon and social world since it came out.
While we're on the subject,
Sure,
we're gonna go conspiracy.
hit me.
What is up with all these streaming platforms putting out the one good movie, one good show a piece, and then alternating? How does that happen? And is it?
I think if I could give a conspiracy, I would say it's a shared monopoly. They literally all do this in a rotated cycle enough to have you subscribe, to make it inconvenient for you to not subscribe to more than one.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And I mean, it is what it is. I thought you said conspiracy theory. I was thought, like, are we talking about 9/11 right now? Because, oh boy.
Tower 7.
Yeah, come on, guy. Sign me up. We'll go down that hole.
Oh, we're going to go there one day.
But no, I think it is, to be honest, I think Americans and consumers, globally speaking, you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
Oh, yeah.
We have put ourselves...
Not on my list, but it's somewhere.
It's relevant, dude. Yeah, it's there. We have caved in so many ways that the average person, out of convenience, is totally fine doing that. So everybody else has to do it to keep up.
I was in too deep. I'm in too deep. I've got them all.
Just about same here. And I will say though, I get my dang money's worth out of it. Like I really do feel that a video.
And now well, honestly, it's probably better the way we grew up when we had that 80s action movie that came on, and then we had like something else that came on. Too many choices. I mean, I spend more time trying to go, what is this movie going to make me feel? You know.
Right. Well, you know, saturation, dude. There's not only is there again, I use this word often because there's certain things that just it applies to. This is one of them. Exponential. There is an exponentially higher amount of music videos, movies, television shows. There's so much out there that it can't be all housed in the same place, you know, and it's easy to take that oversaturation, split it up, and reap the benefits. I mean that's all we're seeing with that, and I'm happy. I'm happy being a sheep in that capacity. I will pay your money, Amazon. I will pay your money, HBO.
Honestly, I think if I could get my wife to do it, I'd probably watch more podcasts on YouTube.
Oh, sure.
Instead of some of the TV.
There are a couple that I'm a big fan of. One is actually I love just like the general sit down conversational podcast, but I love like the investigative podcast, the investigative storytelling. S-Town is one of my favorite listens in the entire world. It's a dude in Alabama calls Serial, which is one of the most highly regarded podcast storytelling companies in the nation. They did the story of Bo Bergdahl. They've done serious. It's My American Life is the series, and they're phenomenal. But this guy from Bibb County, Alabama, called New York City. Hey, I've been listening to you guys for years and years and years, and we don't have the resources to cover this here, but there's been murders in my town. These cops have been killing people, brushing it under the rug, blah, 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 and we can't handle it. And he said, I'm about tired of living in this shit town. And that's what S-Town is shit town, Alabama.
Wow.
And so this investigative journalist crew goes down to Bibb County, Alabama from New York City. And by the end of this story, dude, there are people literally digging for buried gold in back roads, Alabama. It's like The Goonies meets murder mystery meets a journalist, and they all have a baby, and they don't know who's responsible as the father or mother. It's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
So I love a good story. That really boils down to it. We totally digressed. I'm going to spit these other two out. My other top two movies of all time. My number one comedy of all time is and will be Until I Die, Dumb and Dumber. It still holds up to this day. Dude.
Yeah, come on.
It's
That's great.
So funny to me, and it's so like, you know, I can watch that with my kid, and she's 9, about to be 10, and she'll laugh her ass off at so many of the jokes, but she won't hit all the inappropriate stuff, and I'm over here like snickering to myself at things that are coming up 5 minutes later. Probably. If I had to pick a third movie specifically, I am a huge fan of The Green Mile by Stephen King also.
Wow.
That's
I did not see that coming.
That's one of the first movies that made me cry.
Really?
Tough, dude. And now I'll cry in anything. I cried in Thor: Love and Thunder at this point in my life.
There was a movie that I'm not a crier, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to check with my wife, but maybe it did make me cry. I don't recall exactly, but I think it was The Bridge to Terabithia.
I know the name. I haven't seen it, but it was hardcore, huh?
Something about a little girl or something dies or something crazy. Something
Sad stuff,
happens
dude.
happening
Yeah,
there, bro. I don't really remember the part, but I remember it's like, because it wasn't something I put on. I just happened to catch it, get in the groove with it, and then I was like, oh my God. Oh, and then another one that just came out. It was Letters to Santa.
I have not seen this one. Is
Brand
this
new movie.
streaming or in theaters?
Streaming. I think it was Prime. Jack Black. All right, you're gonna love this.
I love Jack Black.
You're gonna love this. The kid's
Is this where he's Satan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He writes a letter instead of Santa, and he sends it to Satan. Funny movie.
Sure.
Great movie.
Probably pretty heartwarming by the end.
The very end.
Sure.
I lost my shit. I was like, I did not expect that. And it's funny, goofy, goofy until the very end.
And then you're done.
And you're like, what the hell? it's crazy. It's worth watching. It's a great movie.
I'll watch it. Just the setup of that alone has that caught my attention.
So funny. He goes and he's hanging out with Post Malone. I mean, it's great. It is a great movie.
So one of the funnier and what it kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a TV show on Netflix. I'm not big into animated series, but have you heard of Big Mouth?
I'm familiar with it.
So in essence, I mean, I love personification. Like, I'll see that Mountain Dew over there and I'll be like, oh man, that girl, she looks thirsty. She looks like she wants a sip of something, and I attribute give personal attributes to things all the time. But it's basically these kids in like middle school age. And as their hormones kick in, they're portrayed by these things called the hormone monsters. So you've got like the anxiety wizard or the shame wizard and the anxiety mosquitoes and Maury, just the pervert. Everything is perverted now.
Yeah.
And so like I saw Jack Black as Satan Santa.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, that's like a real life Maury right now.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to love it. It's a great movie.
Sure I would.
But yeah, dude, we're going to have to wrap this up because I got to go to bed.
Well, we'll do that. And maybe by the next time we sit down, I'll have knocked out a couple interviews with the projects. Real quick, I will plug that because I do think a lot of the viewers here would get a kick out of that. That wall is dedicated to my former member unit, Easy Company 2506, and myself and a medic I served with are going to be traveling the country, interviewing, our fellow service members, talking about, in a nutshell, and this is a shameless plug, and I don't even care.
Yeah.
So many of the biggest struggle, I think, with the military before we get out of here is we feel very lost and alone. If we didn't, 22 of us would not be committing suicide. Every single person I deployed with came back home from our deployment, and we're nearing 30 that have committed suicide as of right now. So we're going to be talking about, who we were before, during, and after the service, and what we feel is causing some of these struggles of addiction, homelessness, isolation, to try and help others sort out their own issues by therapeutically finding through us that they're not alone.
I want you to watch a podcast that I did with the Fort Drum Rodeo and Equestrian Club.
Please send me that link.
Yeah, it was. You're gonna see it. There's 3 cowboys. Well, one's a lady.
Sure.
And I was sitting there while recording, and then it impacted me when he said it. But then I watched it while I was editing over and over, trying to get it right. This guy, he said he sits in the barracks.
Sure.
He said that's the way a lot of people develop problems.
Sure.
And he was talking. It sounded like he was aware of people that were having like serious problems, and he was like, I get out and I found this rodeo club, and they've got me working ranch. They've got me doing this stuff instead of sitting in the barracks. And it was,
Sure.
I don't know, I guess explaining it.
Sure.
But you can look in the video and see, like, I was like, man, that's deep. There's some people who's got some problems.
There's a lot of,
and I'm like,
a lot of struggles.
They're doing something about it.
Well, next time we sit down, I hope to have a couple of those to refer back to.
Yeah.
I'll send them to you as soon as we have them. And that is my next step.
Yeah. Dude, this is a great spot too, by the way.
I appreciate it, man. We look good in here.
Open the window too, because
it feels so good. Well, dude, it has been a treat. I've been happy to have you here, as always.
All right, man. Peace out.
Adios, guys.